Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Alan Carr Easy Way to Stop Smoking webcast. By now you should have smoked your final cigarette. First of all, congratulations on being a happy non-smoker. By smoking that final cigarette, you have already taken the only step you needed to take to be a non-smoker. Follow these very simple instructions and you will ensure that you remain a happy non-smoker for the rest of your life, never ever being vulnerable to cigarettes ever again. I'd like to start with a word about the physical withdrawal from nicotine. Be aware that for the next couple of days you're going to have this little nicotine monster running around inside your body looking to be fed. Basically, you're going to starve him to death. As I have been saying throughout this presentation, physical withdrawal from nicotine is actually extremely mild. So much so that the vast majority of smokers sleep through it every single night, and it's so mild it doesn't even wake them up. If you feel anything at all, it'll just be a slight emptiness, a slightly empty feeling in the pit of your stomach, very similar to mild hunger. Now, this feeling is no more alarming than, I don't know, spotting a bit of fluff that's landed on your sleeve. It might grab your attention for a moment or two, and then you can just brush it away. And this is what you should do when that empty feeling comes. Just brush it away. The key thing, really, that you need to do is to start off feeling happy with your decision to quit. Now, it's true that some decisions are difficult, a change of job or a new partner or whether to invest in one business or another, and, but this is not one of those difficult decisions. This is one of the easiest and one of the best decisions that you will ever make. I mean, think about it. There are absolutely no downsides to being a non-smoker, just as there are no upsides to staying a smoker. If I asked you 1,000 times, would you want to be a smoker for the rest of your life? You would answer me 1,000 times, no, no, no. You have made the right decision. And this is your first instruction. Having made that right decision is never, ever, ever doubt or dispute it. You have chosen to be a happy non-smoker. Walk that path and you'll find the whole process very straightforward. Your second instruction is don't try not to think about smoking. If I was to say to you, whatever you do, don't think about bananas, what's the first thing that leaps to mind? Of course, bananas. You will think about smoking. It's what you're thinking that is the key. I mean, you can't try not to think about something that you're trying not to think about, can you? So what's the point of trying? Just ensure that whenever you think about smoking, what you're thinking is how wonderful it is to be free and how much you hated being a slave and a prisoner to this drug that didn't even get you high. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking that it's unfair that these people get to smoke and that you can't, or I want a cigarette but I'm not allowed to, well, of course you'll be miserable. But if you're thinking how wonderful it is that that you have broken free from this drug, then of course you'll be happy. And the more you think about it, the happier you become. So my advice is to think a lot about smoking over the next few days, but think about it from that positive frame of mind. Don't start with this feeling of doom and gloom. That's for people who are trying to quit smoking using willpower. Just think instead how great it is that you don't have to smoke. Great, I'm a non-smoker. Next, over the next couple of days or weeks, many of you will experience what Alan refers to in his books as the moment of revelation. This usually comes at a time when you're doing something that you never thought you'd be able to do without a cigarette in your hand. And you realize that you did it, and you didn't even think about smoking. This is the point where many people begin to realize that they really have done it. They really, truly are free. And it feels absolutely amazing. You know, it's funny. I now have 2 lists that I keep by. The one is what life was like as a smoker, and the other is my moment of revelation. And sometimes I'll read these lists, and they invariably put a huge smile on my face. So, like I said, my advice to you is to write these lists, keep them close at hand over the next couple of days. I mean, don't wait for the moment of revelation to come. It's a little bit like, what do they say? A watched pot never boils, and that's definitely this case. So don't watch for the moment revelation to come. It'll come when it's ready, but when it comes, you'll know it, and it feels absolutely amazing. So you'll know it, and you'll love it. Start out with a feeling of happiness, and seriously, you'll be there in no time at all. Your fourth instruction is to enjoy this change. You have made a big change today. I mean, it's a brilliant change, but it's a big change too. And sometimes change can be a little bit unsettling. Not because it's good or bad, but just because it's new and it's different. Can take a little bit of time to get used to. Do not allow yourself to get intimidated by this change, because this is the change that you have chosen. You have chosen to take your life back from this drug. You have chosen to take your freedom back from this drug. This is the right decision. Walk this path with confidence. In any case, what's the alternative? A life of fear, anxiety, stress, slavery? This is a wonderful thing that you have done today, and you should give yourself permission to enjoy it. Like settling into a new, higher-paying job, or moving to a big new house in the best part of town. You know, sometimes even good change can take a little bit of time to get used to. So give yourself time. Next, be conscious of some smokers over the next few days or weeks. And particularly be mindful of the concept that there truly is no such thing as one cigarette. You know, most of the smokers that you meet will be thrilled that you have quit smoking. They'll be really, really happy for you. But every so often, you might bump into a smoker that isn't exactly thrilled. You really need to be aware that every smoker has this fear of being the last one left in the trap. So when people hear that you've quit smoking, that fear might come into play for them. And these are the guys that'll say, oh, come on, you know, just have one, just have one. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as one cigarette. Just one cigarette when you were a child put you in this chair all these years later. Cigarettes don't come in ones. Or packs of 20, for that matter. Cigarettes come in lifetimes. Cigarettes only come in lifetimes. The first cigarette you ever smoked put you in this chair. What a sobering thought that is. Your fifth instruction is never to see or think in terms of smoking as just one cigarette. You must see the reality, which is that if you smoke this cigarette, it will lead to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So you need to see this just one cigarette as a lifetime of smoking. 100, 200,000 cigarettes. Like I said, there's no such thing as one cigarette. Now, when you see other people smoking, you need to get it crystal clear in your mind's eye. These people are drug addicts. They're not smoking because they want to. They're smoking because they have to. They're smoking because they don't know how to stop. And if they knew how to stop, they would do it in a heartbeat. The reality is that these people are addicted to a drug that doesn't get them high, it makes them feel dreadful, and they're desperate to stop doing it. Why on earth would you envy such a person? Your sixth instruction is to show compassion towards smokers. Don't envy them. The truth is, they'll be envying you. But please, by the same token, do not turn into one of these sanctimonious non-smokers. Remember how much you hated those people when you were a smoker. So please don't turn into one of them. But by the same token, be very, very proud of what you have achieved. And make no mistake, this guy, this smoker, he wants what you've got, which is freedom. Next. Life, I think for the most part, is pretty amazing. But even the most privileged of lives is peppered with occasional disappointments. For example, when we lose things or we lose people that we love, at such times it's natural to go through a process of mourning, really. But do you need to go through a process of mourning when you kill an enemy? You see, I would say not. So the question is a very simple one. Have you lost a friend or have you killed an enemy? All I'm saying is, look at the facts. For years, this thing has been stealing from you. It has been stealing your time, your energy, your money, your relationships, your self-respect, your self-esteem, and your freedom. For years, the cigarette has stolen all of those things from you. You have not lost a friend. You have killed an enemy. Your seventh instruction is to revel in that enemy's death. Dance on his grave. Because if the tables were turned, never forget he would have danced on yours. Your eighth instruction is to remember that, believe it or not, non-smokers do have bad days. And you will have bad days as a non-smoker. I mean, if I'm driving along in my car and someone smashes into my car, I don't sort of say, oh, don't worry about it, I'm a non-smoker. Of course I get angry, I get cross. Of course I do. Anyone would. I just don't have any illusion that smoking a cigarette would fix my car. I mean, if I smoked a cigarette every time we hit a little bump in the road, we'd be back to being a full-time smoker in no time at all, wouldn't we? One of the things that you can be sure of, no matter what highs or lows will befall you in your future life, you will always have that wonderful, amazing silver lining that at least you don't smoke, and at least you will never have to smoke ever again. I think you'll find what I found when I became a non-smoker, which was, to my utter astonishment, my ability to cope with stress and adversity improved dramatically as a non-smoker. And I think there are several reasons for this. Firstly, I wasn't being constantly distracted by the thought of, when can I get out of here and go for a smoke? You know, I was actually able to devote myself to dealing with the issue in hand. Secondly, as occurs with anyone who quits smoking, my oxygen and nutrient levels went back to normal, which means greater energy and greater clarity of thought. And when you have energy and clarity of thought, it makes you feel more positive. And of course, when you're feeling more positive, I think it makes it easier to attack problems and solve problems, you know. My intellectual stamina, you know, because the oxygen levels in my brain were back to normal, my intellectual stamina improved very dramatically, so I was able to concentrate for much, much longer periods. Next, I also became a doer, you know. As a smoker, to be honest with you, I was always a bit of a procrastinator. In fact, I was a black belt procrastinator, I would say. I could always think of an excuse to do nothing so I could go out and have another cigarette. Often as a smoker, I'd be honest with you, I felt like a spectator in my own life. You know, I was kind of hanging on the edges of life. Now I don't need to hang on the edges of life. I'm right at the center of it. You know, molehills that became mountains when I was a smoker, today I nip them in the bud, you know, before they even become an issue. Your ninth instruction is to remember, above all, by becoming a happy non-smoker, you aren't losing anything. You are taking control of your life back and getting rid of a disease. I mean, if a good friend of yours had a life-threatening disease and recovered, would you be miserable or happy? You'd be ecstatic. Well, that's how you should feel today, because today you have taken your life back and your freedom. Celebrate from square one and keep celebrating every day for the rest of your life. You haven't given up smoking. You've got rid of it. A word about substitutes. All substitutes are fatal because they perpetuate this idea that by stopping smoking you have lost something or given something up, that quitting leaves a hole in your life. The reality is quite the opposite. Smoking was the problem here, not the solution. Cigarettes were the hole in your life. By getting rid of the cigarettes, you have filled that hole. Now you are complete. I mean, look at it this way.